Hi, Larry. This is Michael from One Voice. It's good to have you. And I know we've had some prior conversations, but I do want to introduce you to our audience, in particular the One Voice audience. And this is Larry Mays, and he's the Certified Peer Recovery Specialist at the Glenn Gardner, the Freedom House Glenn Gardner facility. And Larry's willingly going to share some of his recovery, his journey, his testimony. So, Larry, with that introduction, if I can turn that over to you, and we'll see if we have some interaction during your testimony.
Very good. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Of
I'm
course.
always happy to give my time back when it comes to recovery and the recovery process. Being someone in recovery myself, I know that this part of my journey is very fulfilling. If I can help someone avoid the pitfalls that I've had in my life, I'm certainly willing to do that. But real quick, short synopsis about myself, and then if you want to have question answer, that's fine.
Okay.
My story is a little bit different than most people in recovery, primarily because I said, although I am from Jersey, I was raised on a pig farm in South Jersey. Being raised on a farm, especially with animal husbandry, a pig farm, it's a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of freedom. I'm from a small town called Egg Harbor City. I'm the youngest of five. I really believe my trauma started prior to my actual birth. I was born blue. And my mother's 8th month of pregnancy, she told my grandmother that I believe I'm going to die with this child. She says, "Why do you say that?" She says, "Because I don't feel anything." I guess a few short time after that, days, weeks, I'm not sure, my mother began to hemorrhage. And they rushed my mom to the hospital. They told my father that you can save the child, but we probably won't be able to save your wife. So at that time, my father said goodbye to my mom, and she went into surgery, believing that he would have a child but no wife. And if you can imagine, put yourself in his shoes, already having 4 children. At that time, you really don't even see a child. You see your wife. Hemorrhaging is what you see. At that point, anybody would say, "No, save my wife." I already got 4 children. At any rate, they did a C-section on my mom. And back then, in 1960, there was no cute little bikini cut. They did a pretty bad butcher job. And they pulled me out. I had turned myself around and upside down in the womb, and it spun the umbilical cord around my neck, and I was strangling myself. And I was born once again blue, no oxygen at all. Don't know how long I was like that. I do know that I didn't speak. My mother told me until I was 3. Now, I tell that story not because I remember it happening, but if the theory is correct that what a mother experiences while carrying the child experiences the trauma, right? Then obviously I have childhood trauma. But I always felt like my father, for the first 12 years of my life, had a major resentment against me. And I see that because I sensed it, because as you can imagine, because it was such a traumatic birth, and my mother thought she was going to die, the joy that she had that she was alive and her baby was saved, right? But on the other hand, my father, seeing what she went through, and then the scar reminding him what I put her through, right? Had a resentment. And as you can imagine, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every New Year's, every Easter, every time new people were introduced to our family, my mother told the story again and again, and my father had to hear it again and again. And this one is my baby. Oh my God, let me tell you about him. I almost died with this one, right? And my father, oh, here we go with this one again. So that's why I know the story so well, because once again, because my mother went through that and we made it, she dawdled over me my entire life, right, as a youngster. And of course, no man wants to see his son pampered like a little girl, right? So you
Harry,
see the
let me interrupt just a second. How about the siblings? Was there, again, just briefly, was there any resentment from your siblings, your four
um
siblings?
I don't believe there was resentment per se,
Right,
but they certainly, I had the same type feedback that the youngest sibling always gets. The
got it.
baby always gets the best. The baby didn't get treated like we got treated. The baby gets everything, he's the baby. So they
Mm,
pampered me as well, right?
mm,
But they did torture me as well too.
mm.
Uh, just as any family would do. We had the regular dynamics going on.
Yeah, sure.
But
Sure.
anyway, I was born in a lineage with all my cousins, my brothers, my sisters. They were 2 years older than me, 4 years older than me, right? We're on the farm in South Jersey, plenty of freedom. Um, it was the late 60s. My oldest siblings were in college at UMass and New Hampshire and the hippies and all that scene. My cousins were all 14 and 18. I was born in a Christian home, a lot of home of faith. We were Pentecostal, right? I spent, you know, all day Sunday in church, Wednesday night prayer service, Thursday night choir practice, and then many times Thursday or Friday we're out singing, traveling and singing. But in my household, there was no cigarettes, no alcohol, no booze, no cursing, no card playing, not even coffee served unless we had guests, right? That was in my immediate home. That's where our family lived, the Mays family and the Church of the Living God, Pillar of Ground and Truth in South Jersey. Weren't allowed to associate with Baptists or Methodists, so to speak. We just associated with our church family, Church of the Living God, wherever they were. Once in a while, we would do ecumenical services. Were not big back then. Everybody kind of stayed together, right? But the whole smoking and drinking thing prohibited. If we did it, we did it behind closed doors. Um, Long story short, and I share this for all the men out there and for my daughter, who I love dearly. I promised her that this time in recovery, I would be totally candid and truthful. I've been in recovery multiple times. 4 years ago, my daughter asked me what would be different this time. I told her this time I'm going to take full participation. She may have thought that, I didn't go to groups, or I didn't talk to my counselor, or maybe I, didn't keep a job or stay on a job. It wasn't it. Until 4 years ago, I never shared that as a young boy, I was sexually molested. And I say that because if that's the very thing that kept me speedballing, drinking, and drugging in my life, the perpetual cycle, then I was going to share that this time around to make sure that I was totally open, right, and honest. And I share that for the men out there who also have been sexually molested, but have not gained the strength to to share that. Each time I share it, I get a little bit more freedom. I get a little more power and a little more confidence. Um, Definitely was a product of the fact that I was younger than all my siblings and extended family. So I want to hang out with the big boys and the big kids and do everything they were doing. Ergo, that's what happens when you want to hang out with the big boys, right? 4 years is not a big difference when you're 25, right? But when you're, say, 10 and they're 14, or you're 9 and they're 13, that's you really got no business with them. So that's why I started smoking, drinking, and drugging at 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. I started drinking. I was molested when I was 9 by a cousin of mine. And I'll share this, which I never shared before, which I had a lot of shame about. Begin to manage your emotions where it's more like a lasagna noodle, right? Just little waves, not too high, not too low, just manageable. And everybody needs something different. Some people need, some medicine to keep them mild. Some people are bipolar. But generally, it's been proven that talk therapy is just as effective, if not more, than some medications,
Mhm.
right? People
Mhm.
just need somebody to talk to, right? Instead of bottling up where it can cause all kinds of physical ailments, right? Some people just need something to talk to, right? But
Sure.
more than that, we need something to believe in. And that's where the spiritual side of it comes into play. It's the most important thing. Your spirit is that thing that inundates you, that thing that rather gives you, we call it characterization, right? That thing that gives you life, your spirit, right? Um, I had a spirit when I was conceived, before I was even brought out of my mother's womb, the tragic way I was, my spirit was already there because life was already there.
Of course.
At the end of the road, and a lot of people can relate to this, not so much that I really wanted to kill myself, but if I had to continue living the way I was living, I'd rather be dead.
Mhm.
I would have rather been dead. A lot of people can relate to that. But many people do attempt suicide. Many people do succeed. But the fact of the matter is, it's because your will to live, your spirit has been broken, right? Um, that's what the spiritual malady is all about. The twist, the twisted relationships, the twisted thoughts, the twisted feeling in your gut is the reason why I use a drug to change how I feel. It doesn't matter what the drug was, right? It really doesn't matter. What I want to do is change the way I feel, right? Literature tells me that my sobriety is contingent upon the daily maintenance of my spiritual condition. The daily maintenance of my spiritual condition. What's that mean? Upon awakening, right? Upon awakening, I look at the 24 hours ahead and I see how can I align my will with my higher power's will. So I start my day every day with, when I open my eyes, I thank you with gratitude, right? With a prayer, right? I say, you know what, God, I'm not getting out of this bed without you. As a matter of fact, why don't you get out of bed first and I'll follow you the rest of the day. How about that? You get out of bed first and I'll follow you the rest of the day.
Mhm.
You know what, God, why don't you be my point man? Clear the way for me. I'm coming behind you, right? Then I roll on my knees and I begin to say, the Jabez prayer or my own personal needs or thank you. I go into my bathroom and I have my daily reading, my daily meditation there, right? I put my music on while I'm shaving or I listen to a couple of speakers, Joyce Myers, T.D. Jakes, whoever it may be, Joel Osteen, just a word every day while I'm
Mhm.
shaving, while I'm in the shower, right? Preparing myself for the day ahead, becoming spiritually fit because life can throw you and will throw you curveballs, right? But you know what? If you're spiritually fit, you can hit a curveball. You know, you really can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Larry, let me ask you something. First of all, this is riveting. Um, what would the message be or the counsel that you would have to a faith leader who is counseling? Now, a lot of faith leaders are not trained, certainly not trained with for substance misuse training or counseling, but they are an ecclesiastical counselor. What counsel would you give them if they are meeting with somebody like a young adult or like a teenager, a 14-year-old, or even a young adult in their early 20s that is having substance misuse issues? What counsel would you give to that faith leader?
what the faith leader actually is aware of is what I ended the last segment with. Um, is how is that person feeling, right?
Mm,
Why are they feeling that way? But the science part of it is really good because what I've learned is, right, a human being's brain develops into your 21, 22. So
mhm,
you ask a 16 or 17-year-old who does something really stupid, what were you thinking? They don't
mhm,
know because they weren't thinking.
mhm,
They're still operating with the center part of their brain. You got to
mhm,
let the kid be the kid. They can't help it. Their brain is still developing. Now, if they start drinking and drugging it at 10, 12, 13, 14, it's really skewed in there. It's really skewed in there. So you got to hit them with what the feelings are. Why do you want to change the way you feel? And you got to bring them back to before they first use a drink or a drug. What is it that you like to do? Skateboard. I used to like to fly kites. I used to like to ride dirt bikes or four-wheeling. I really love fishing. What gave you pleasure before you got high? Let's go back there. Let's go back there, right? And we'll start from there. Because you got to bring that back into your life again. When people start using drugs like heroin and methamphetamine, no human being is meant to feel that sort of endorphin rush. You can't match it. You can't match it. So you got to take them back. They got to be purged of the drug, which could take up to 2 years when we're talking methamphetamine. You're not meant, because it's man-made and chemical,
Yeah,
right? Like
sure.
in that quantity, that strength, you're not meant to ever feel that. Where you would pass up sex, right? You pass up sex to go shoot a bag or meth. Yeah, why? Because of the rush, the feeling. I will tell you this: those kids are meant to be in relationships. There's something called the Portugal study, and you want to check it out on YouTube. TED Talk, the Portugal study, and you talk about the rat, right, in the cage by himself. He has the drugs and the water and the food, and that rat in that cage by himself will take that drug over and over again. Won't eat, won't drink until he dies. Take the same rat and put him in a cage with the drugs, the water, and the food. But you put a little pond in there, you put a ball in there, you put a spinning wheel in there, right? You put some other rats in there, some male, some female rats in there. You make it like Rat Utopia. That rat very rarely takes the drug. He congregates with other rats. He plays on the Ferris wheel. He has sex and procreates, right? Why? Because all of his needs are being met. He doesn't want to be felt out of sort. That drug takes you out of sorts. No one really wants to feel that way if they have what they need. So in Portugal, you know what they do? They decriminalized all drugs about 20 years ago. Instead of spending money on the penal system, they reward people for staying clean and sober. You get social services the longer you stay clean, right? They give them a place to live. After a couple of years, they give them a car. A couple more years, they give them a house. As long as you stay clean and sober. Their OD rate dropped in half in a matter of years when they decriminalized everything and started putting money into making the person with nothing feel good about themselves, but rewarding them for doing their part.
No, I am so glad you actually mentioned that. That's a great recommendation. I think everyone that's watching this should look at that. It was a TED Talk, you said?
TED Talk, the Portugal study, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I need to work on that. I need to look at that too.
Yeah, and it's only now that America's kind of getting into it with this recovery court thing, right? Hey, listen, let's face it, there was no recovery court 20 years ago. As long as dope, and coke was in the ghetto, in the hood, right? In the urban areas, it was fine. But what Purdue Pharma did with the opioid epidemic, the Oxycontin, when mainstream America started getting addicted to Percocet and then to heroin and now fentanyl, they said, wait, we got to do something, right? So they create drug court, recovery court to keep them out of jail. Now they realize we can't lock them up. Treatment's the way, not incarceration.